Ticket 93.7 KNTK. I'm pretty anxious to get this guy on the air today. Bryan Munson. Listen, Bryan, I've had a wheel of guest co-hosts, and my new full-time co-host is in Europe, and he gets back next Tuesday, day after Labor Day. And every time I talk to you on the phone, somehow we get into we just start rambling about how jacked we are for college football. It's finally here, my friend.
Yeah, I can finally calm down a little bit and not worry about having just to watch baseball from here on out.
Yeah, I've heard enough Dan Schulman calling baseball games on ESPN for a while. I'm ready for college football. It starts tonight, South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Tell me, hey, let's set this up for me, Bryan. What's your schedule like tonight? What are you doing?
You know, oddly enough, I have a poker game.
Oh, wow, Bryan. You're not even going to watch Vandy in South Carolina?
No, you know, I'm gonna prolong, the agony a little bit longer. I think actually the first game I'll probably sit down and watch would probably be Nebraska on Saturday. I think I'm just gonna jump into the deep end of the pool and just be there on Saturday when it comes on.
Bryan, looking ahead to that game, Southern Miss comes in, all the accolades from last year, great season. However, new coaching staff, quarterback that's never taken a snap. As a matter of fact, 3 of them that have never taken a snap in a college game. The Huskers are sitting at a 20-point favorite right now. Is this a game Nebraska fans need to be worried about, that all of a sudden Southern Miss is going to come out, throw a couple of surprises, get an early lead? Or is this something where Nebraska truly is able to settle in and maybe make a statement this weekend?
Well, that's what Nebraska needs to do on Saturday, is come out and jump on Southern Miss quickly. They cannot sit back and script the first 25 plays and treat it like a red-white scrimmage game. You're going to have to come out and attack and be aggressive and set the tempo and set the stage for what's going to happen for the rest of the game. This is a game, this is not necessarily a trap game, but this could be a game that can get away from you and you find yourself having to claw your way back into it the entire second and third quarter until the fourth quarter you finally get it back in hand. And you don't want that to happen. And I think you need to give this team some confidence early on that they are as good as what they think they can be, and to keep that as a kind of a snowball effect and keep it going throughout the game.
Bryan Munson, our guest, Big Red Report and FoxSports.com. I know when we talked a little bit off air, Bryan, I said, well, what do you think about the defense, man? Because Damian Stafford, Will Compton, if I told you those are your 2 best players, that makes me a little worried. I think Damian Stafford's going to be a real gem. Will Compton, a good, not great player. Why? I think you told me you think the defense is going to be better than expected this year, correct? Why do you think that?
I think number one, the secondary is going to be better than a lot of people anticipate. And I think that you're going to see a lot of new faces back there, but I think what you get with the new faces is that you get a little bit more experience when you bring some guys back like Stafford. You bring in some other guys back into the mix a little bit. You bring in a Cisse, you bring in a Jackson, and you give some guys a year to flourish in that system. I think Green with another year under his belt is going to be a better player. Deontay Evans with another year under his belt is going to be a better player. And I think it's just going to hit right. I think there's going to be a personnel package or two that you're going to see that's going to be a little bit different on Saturday. I think, that number one, you start out with the Stafford, P.J. Smith at the safeties, and it depends on who's out there at the quarterback positions. But I think that you're going to find just a much looser, not as tentative, not as caught up on making bad decisions and making bad plays. And I think a lot of it goes along with the year of experience, but I think also a lot of it comes with what Coach Joseph is bringing to Lincoln. And I think he's done, from what I've heard, just an outstanding job. I think that secondary is going to be one of the bright spots of the defense all season long.
Hey, Bryan, we've had 10 or 15 guys that there's a ton of expectations that it could be a big year for them. You just mentioned a couple of them. If I ask you to give me 3 names of a breakout player, or three breakout players for the University of Nebraska this year, who are guys going into the week of the Iowa game that Nebraska fans are going to be going, you know what, going back to that opening game, I never thought he was going to be this good. Give me 3 names.
I'm going to say the first one is going to be Brent Qualley. He's a guy that I called my shot on early on. I heard he had a fantastic spring. I heard he's finally healthy. The light bulb has come on. The body is responsive. He's able to respond to what he knows now as far as the offense is concerned. I think that he's gonna shock some people by how good he can go out there and play. I'm a little bit hesitant to throw that one out there first, given that he's kind of out of position from where I saw him originally playing, at guard. But I think as a tackle, he's going to be just fine. I'm going to go number 2. I'm going to go with David Santos as a linebacker. This is a guy that could have been brought out of a redshirt year last year and contributed. I think this year he's a guy that is a little bit under the radar because you're looking back in that secondary and you start talking about Cisse and you're talking about Charles Jackson and you're looking for what kind of combinations you're going to look in the secondary or how they're going to look in the secondary. But I think Santos is going to be a guy that's going to quietly be there. He's got some big shoes to fill, too, with the loss of Devontae David and playing the will spot. Another guy that I've heard some pretty good things about and I'm encouraged to see, I'm going to go out there and say Avery Moss.
Yeah.
And this is a guy here, guys, that I wasn't completely sold on right away because I think back, 4 years ago or 5 years ago now, and William Yancey, the last defensive end that Nebraska took out of Arizona. And, the light bulb just never really came on there, didn't really have the motor. Avery, high school film, looked a little light, looked more like an outside linebacker in a 3-4. Now he's a guy that shows up in Lincoln, and he's 6'3", 260. He's gigantic. And I think what you do with Moss right now is you put him in a situation where he's opposite Cameron Meredith, and you give him a chance to play with the number ones. You don't go in there and put him with a set where you're all number 2s. And I think what you do is you make him play up to the rest of the guys that are out there on the field as opposed to just scrub time, and you're going to get the most out of this guy in his freshman year. I think I'm going to go with Avery Moss in a defensive end.
Why? Maybe this is just me, Bryan, but it really feels like the coaching staff is never going to give up on Sean Fisher. They really think maybe he's got a high ceiling. But when I watch him play, I don't understand why he's out there. I know he's been hampered by injuries. Don't get me wrong. But he seems slow out there. You mentioned David Santos. I think Alonzo Whaley's going to start. But David Santos, Trevor Roach, do you think the coaching staff needs to change something up at linebacker?
I think they're willing to look at all sorts of personnel packages this year, and I think for the first time in a couple of years, they have some flexibility across all 3 linebacking spots. You brought up Roach. I think Roach is a very underrated, underappreciated guy that can play the Mike spot, for Will Compton. I think you look over at that Will spot, and maybe you do start Zoe Whaley on Saturday, but I'll guarantee you Santos is going to figure in there. And you go back over the Buck spot, and you're talking about Fisher being a guy. And I think what Fisher brings to the table is the experience. It's the knowledge of what's happening on defense at any given time. And I think as much as anything, when we talk about cohesiveness and just playing as a group and gelling, the biggest parts of this, the first 3 weeks of the season are going to be putting guys at the right spots, and you're going to need players like Will Compton and Sean Fisher and P.J. Smith on the field to make sure that the guys know what they're doing at all times. And they're going to act as an extension of the coaching staff. And I think that where you got Sean Fisher out there now playing the Buck spot, being a starter, I think a guy like Zaire Anderson is going to get plenty of time there to play Buck. Maybe take a shot and go play some Will as well. But I think he figures in mostly at the Buck position.